Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli back out in the shop with another video for you today. And in today's shop, we're going to talk about a technique that's a unique spin on a very popular fishing style. And today's shop, we're talking about a fluke, but not a regular rigged fluke. We're going to be talking about a method called the backsliding fluke. This is going to be a really cool, different spin on your traditional fluke fishing. This style, this backsliding fluke, is going to be a presentation that's a little different. It's going to be better at getting a little deeper, and it's going to show the fish a silhouette in a way that they normally don't see it. So I'm excited to share this one with you today. Before we get into the backsliding fluke, let me show you just the traditional fluke rig that you know, right? And this is just a Berkley power bait jerk shad. It's 5-inch bait. That's your traditional fluke looking lure. And most people, most times of the year, including myself, just rig it like this, right? You're going to rig it Texas style with the point of the hook at the nose, the back of the hook toward the tail, rig it on a jig head with the jig head at the nose. And when the nose is facing forward on these flukes, especially weightless like this, it provides a lot of lift and it really darts erratically up near the top, right? Traditional fluke fishing like this is a technique that is for the top. Subsurface, actually working it on the top, maybe down to a couple feet. It's a great presentation, right? The darting action and the silhouette, that minnow profile, is really what make fluke fish bite. But today we're going to show you a rigging method that's going to get that same silhouette and presentation to go deeper and to have a completely different action, right? We're going to get this lure to actually glide backwards, tick on the bottom, and then on the upward twitch, move like a traditional fluke, okay? So today's all about this backsliding fluke. All right, let's talk about baits, okay? This is a technique you could use with any 4 to 6 inch minnow style lure. You heard me just say it without a doubt. My favorite is that traditional fluke profile. This is the 5-inch jerk shad by Berkley Power Bait. But, you know, in the world of minnow fishing right now, there's a lot of really good bigger minnow shapes coming out as well. So 4, 5-inch minnow style baits without that tail work pretty good too. And this is the 5-inch drip minnow by Berkley. Okay, so we've got our traditional fluke baits. The next thing is we're going to talk about hooks. And we're going to be able to use 2 different style hooks depending on the cover. And I'm going to flush all this out with you. But basically, we're going to use an offset hook. This is a Berkley Fusion traditional offset style, EWG style hook. And just like in my regular fluke fishing, I'm going to use a 4 or a 5/0 EWG or offset style worm hook, okay? And we're going to use that worm hook on this backsliding fluke to Texas rig the bait. And that means anytime I'm around cover, this is the way I'm going to fish it. Texas rigged with a 4 or 5/0 offset hook. So brush piles, overhanging trees, heavy grass, docks. When I'm using this backsliding fluke around docks, and there's cables and ropes and anchors, right? So for cover situations, 4 or 5/0 offset EWG style hook, worm hook. But then I'm going to show you a second method for the backsliding fluke that uses an exposed hook. A regular, this is just a round bend exposed style hook, okay? The key thing, guys, for this style hook, and if you look at it, this is just a regular round bend hook, 4 or 5/0, same categories, 4 or 5/0, but we're going to use a hook that has a 90-degree line tie. That 90-degree eye is going to be really, really key, okay? So for this second style that's going to leave the point exposed, 4 or 5/0 round bend hook, but not one that has a 60, not one that has an inline. We want a 90-degree line tie. And you're going to see why in a second, okay? 4 or 5/0 round bend hook for the exposed system. And for that one, I'm going to be fishing more open water, right, guys? I'm off of main lake points, you know, going down a gravel bank, fishing a hump that's clean on the top. There's nothing to snag on. So limit it, sparse to no cover situations. We're going to use an exposed hook on this backsliding fluke, okay? All right, last but not least, last piece of equipment. Guys, we're going to need a nail weight, okay? And this is really the piece of the puzzle that will make this lure get deeper. And this is the piece of the puzzle that's going to make this fluke on the fall actually slide backwards. You know, I got to stress that this presentation is cool because on any given cast, you can make it do 3 different things. But on that initial fall, dude, it's gliding. It's actually sliding backwards. Look at the shape of this fluke, right? It's very sort of flat and thin. And that profile, when we turn it around, you're going to see in a second, with that nail in the tail, is going to make this thing glide, slide and glide almost backwards, right? Thus the name, the backsliding fluke. That's such a unique presentation. It's hard to get any other lure to actually fall backwards, right? So it looks like a natural dying bait fish, killer, 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 but we can actually get it further under stuff. If you're old like me, you remember the old flying lure infomercial. Do you remember that? Kind of silly, but the concept of a lure falling backwards and gliding under stuff is really cool, okay? So that weight's going to help us do that. The second part to this is once it hits the bottom, that weight is going to allow that fluke to sort of sit nose down, tail up, and we're going to shake our rod tip. When we do that, this fluke's going to look like it's pecking the bottom. Dude, how natural is that? How many times have you seen a minnow or a shiner or a crawfish or a bluegill pecking at the bottom like that? And then last but not least, that nail weight's in the back. It's like ballast. When we twitch it up like a traditional fluke, we twitch that rod tip, it's going to still move upward like a traditional fluke. We let it fall, nails in the back, it's ballast, glides backwards again, lands on the bottom, and it pecks. So 3 actions in every cast. That's pretty unique. All right, guys, let's get to the rigging. And I want to show you the 2 styles, and then we'll go through each one and show you how it's rigged. So we'll start with the Texas rig style. And if you look at it, it looks exactly like the Texas rig fluke that you know about, that you're already fishing, except it's backwards, right? The line tie, instead of being at the nose, is about a little over halfway up the body. And if you look, that back of the hook, the point of the hook, is in the rear, okay? So we have our Texas style 4 or 5/0 EWG wide gap hook. And then we have, and by the way, that was the jerk shad, Berkeley jerk shad, and this is the drip minnow. And now we have that same system with the exposed hook, right? Round bend, 4 or 5/0, 90-degree line tie, you see sitting right there, okay? And this one's for that open water, right? Sparse cover, not a lot of cover. All right, so here we go, guys. Show you the rigging. Pretty simple. We'll just pop it out of here. The nice thing about the fluke the Berkeley Fluke is that if you look at it, it actually has ribs on the top. And it's got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little indents on that. So I use that as a marker. And I want to go just above that last 6th little indent. So toward the tail. And I'm going to get that hook. And I'm actually going to just poke the line tie out of the body, okay? So most of these flukes, traditional style flukes, have this little slit in the bottom. So I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to go through the bottom, and my eyelet's going to pop out of the top, just like that, okay? Just above that last little ridge on the top of that fluke. I'm going to get that bait. I'm going to do my traditional Texas rig. The only thing is it's backwards, right? So I'm going to push it a little head, pull it out. I want to keep it nice and straight. When I do that, I've got a Texas rig, but it's backwards. The line tie is toward the tail, okay? Guys, same thing on the exposed hook exactly. This is the drip minnow. On the drip minnow, if you look at where I put that 90-degree line tie, it's just below that dorsal fin in the back. I thread it through the body, and when the hook pops out, it pops out right near the head. So it's just a backwards fluke, right? All right, last component, guys, and that is the nail weight. A lot of different ones on the market. I like the lead ones, not just because they're more inexpensive, but because I can modify these things on the fly. Lead cuts really easily, okay? So I like anywhere from a 32nd of an ounce all the way up to about a 3/16 of an ounce. But I really, really like this 1/8 ounce size in the lead, okay? And depending on the depth, depending on the wind, right, I can add more or less of this nail weight to get that lure to get down toward the bottom, okay? So normal conditions though, guys, normal conditions, I like this 1/8 ounce. If I'm in shallower water, I want to show you how I can modify it. I'd literally just put it in the cutter. I can cut that thing down, trim a little bit off of it. But in either case, I want just enough weight to let this thing get to the bottom. I don't want to overpower it with the nail weight, okay? So the last thing we're going to do on this backsliding fluke, we got it Texas rigged. I'll just wet it a little bit. And I'm literally, guys, going to go straight into the nose of that fluke, okay? One of the things that I like to do when I'm pushing that nail in is I never like to push it in all the way so the plastic covers up the nail. Not for this technique. For this technique, I'm going to push it in. But guys, I want you to see this. This is so important to this rig, is that I want to leave a little bit of that nail sticking out. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to purposely leave a little bit of that nail sticking out. I'm going to show you again on the other one. Okay? Same bait, right? Now this is the one with the exposed hook. Got my nail weight. Just going to go ahead and I'm going to push it right into the nose. But guys, when I do that, once I get it going, I don't want to push it in and completely lose that nail. I always want to leave just a little butt end of that lead sticking out, okay? So now that nail weight is really going to let this bait fall and glide backwards. By leaving that little bit of lead exposed on this backsliding fluke, once it hits the bottom, if I don't get a bite on that initial fall, it hits the bottom, guys, I just start to shake my rod tip. Just like you were shaky head worm fishing. Dun, 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 dun. And when I do that, that blunt end of that lead taps the bottom, makes a little bit of noise, a little bit of dust, a little bit of silt pops up. And it's really more of a pronounced ticking than if you were to push that lead all the way in. Okay? So that nail weight's so key in this rigging, guys. It's providing weight to get it down. It's providing ballast. It's giving you a ticking noise. And then on the rise, this thing's going to just dart like a traditional fluke, okay? So, again, letting it fall, when I cast this bait out and I'm letting this fluke fall, I always want to let it fall on a semi-slack or controlled slack line, because on a tight line, guys, it doesn't slide backwards. With too much slack, you lose control of the bait. So when you make that cast and you're allowing it to fall, bow to the bait to keep slack in that line. Or if you're in real deep water, open your bail, feather it out there, but watch your slack as it's falling. That thing's falling, it's moving, just gliding, boom, hits the bottom, shaking my rod tip. Din, 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 din. It's pecking the bottom. If I don't get bit there, I usually give it 2 to 4 pops, just like a traditional fluke. Boom, 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 boom. And then as I'm popping it, just like a regular fluke, it's moving. I let it fall again. I bow to it. I give it line, semi-slack bow in the line. It falls backwards aimlessly, hits the bottom. I tick again. So I'm doing those 3 movements all the way back to the boat, or not necessarily always all the way back to the boat, but when I feel like I'm around the fish, right? 3 movements, 1 bait, so unique on a lure, a fluke that we've all fished a million times, but really allowing this lure to get closer to the bottom, allowing it to get deeper, allowing it to do things that we can't with traditional fluke rigging, okay? That's the backsliding fluke. One last thing, guys, I want to talk about seasonality. This is one of those presentations that you can really fish year-round. But I love it during the extremes, right? So cold weather, late fall, early winter, what we have right now, sort of, it's great. Heat of the summer, when your traditional fluke that's near the surface isn't working, when the fish are deeper, great presentation. When you're trying to get a fluke under stuff and get to the bottom, it's a great presentation. So seasonality all year round, try this backsliding fluke. It's a unique action, it's a unique fall, and it's a different spin on a lure that has the profile that the fish really love. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this shop talking about the backsliding fluke. Little different spin on fluke fishing. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe to the channel. If you're already a subscriber, tell your friends about Mike Iaconelli Fishing on YouTube. We're here to help you, hopefully learn a couple things and catch more fish. Try that one. I promise you, the fish will like it. Bye. Hey everybody, Mike Iaconelli out in the shop. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, you have to check out that one, and I hope you like them.